Hey everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Snapchat. This week, for the first time ever, we have the prolific Marvel Snap streamer Interrobang. My man, it is great to finally have you on the podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for finally having me. I've been trying to get on here for some time. Glad it all lined up.
I know. Well, actually, we tried to connect probably about a month ago, and then of course you were out of country or something. It was like nearly
Yeah.
impossible. But I'm just excited to finally have you here because you are by far one of my favorite Twitch personalities in Marvel
Oh,
Snap.
thank
I
you.
think that your stream is hilarious. I think it's a ton of fun, and you're almost always on, which I think is awesome for the category.
Yeah. I don't know how I did it, but in my 2025 Twitch recap, it said I streamed 366 days in a row. So I don't know what they're counting, but I broke the yearly limit, I guess.
Is it possible that if you stream complete DGen hours, it counts for 2 days? So
Yeah,
if you
that
go
it must be that. I don't know if it was like a leap year or whatever, but I snuck a day in there.
That's awesome. And I mean, this is the first time you've ever been on the podcast. So, first of all, welcome. And one of the
Thank
things I
you.
always like to start with is what got you into Marvel Snap in the first place? Like, what was the thing that you're like, huh, I should maybe install this game? And then from there, what was like, huh, maybe I should stream this game? And then now you've casted, you've done all this other stuff. Like, what is the origin story?
Yeah, so the full elevator pitch is I was a big Hearthstone gamer, and I followed Ben Brode over here when it finally happened. But Marvel Snap was actually the first game to finally make me miss a daily quest login for Hearthstone. And once that happened, I was like, okay, this must be the game now, because I never did before that. But I was initially worried about the three-lane setup because I played I forgot the name of it, but it was like the Valve Hearthstone
Artifact.
killer. Yeah, Artifact. And I just could not wrap my head around it. It was too much to manage and too much to juggle. So when I heard that this one was also three lanes, I was like, oh, it's gonna be like that again. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it, but it instantly clicked. I instantly loved it. I'm a big Marvel guy, so I resonated with the characters and stuff. So I just stuck around and really loved the game. And then as far as streaming, I was big in the Marvel Snap Discord, just as a player, and then I guess maybe I used one too many clown emojis because I got banned from it, and that was like all I had like to connect with people in the game. So I ended up making a Twitter, and then Twitter just took off. I became like this funny like Twitter personality guy, and then what happened was everyone went to the first SnapCon and like no one was streaming. Like everyone went there. So I was like, okay, this is my opportunity to be like, all right, if you're looking for a snap stream, I'm the only one on right now. And I think I made the title like Mr. Steal Your Streams or like something, and like everyone just came over to me, and then they decided to stick around.
That's absolutely hilarious. And first of all, let me just clarify something. You got banned for using too many clown emojis. Like there has to be more
So
to that. Like unless you are literally spamming clown emojis 24/7. Like you got to give me
I
more
was
context here.
Yeah, I was very antagonistic, and there's a lot of snap hot takes where at the end of the day you kind of just have to be like, that's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And before I was like someone who didn't want to completely offend people. That's kind of how I interacted with people. I was like, this is the most absurd take you could ever have. Here, have a clown emoji. And I guess maybe I don't know. I was too antagonistic. I got reported too many times, and they were just like, "Get this Interrobang guy out of here. He's too he's too mean to everybody."
But you're not banned anymore, right? Like that has been
I'm not banned
rectified.
anymore. The big comeback story is they had to once I started streaming and I became a Marvel Snap creator, they had to let me back in. So kind of the origin story is they created me, really. They banned me, and the only way I could get back in was to become a streamer. So I did that and I got back into the Discord.
I don't know why, but that really reminded me of the storyline of the Incredibles. Like who's it? Like what's the kid that the Mr. Incredible won't collab with?
Yeah,
I
yeah. Oh, I forgot
and
his
then he
name.
gets so mad and he's like fine, I'll be the villain, and then
Yeah.
that's actually hilarious. Well, first of all, it's awesome to have you, and the success you've had in Marvel Snap is not a coincidence. You're incredibly entertaining, and so it's great to finally have you on. Today we got a lot to talk about though. We're going to be talking about the OTA. We're going to be talking about our Lin Lee review. We're going to be talking about Dragon Lord in review, doing a full preview of Fin Fang Foom. And then finally, we have a Snapchat mailbag question, which I think is particularly interesting. So you know what? Let's dive right in. What are we going to do first? You know what? I think that we should probably talk about that OTA. The OTA is a good launching point for the discussion here today because a lot changed. It was one of those OTAs where, like, first of all, I like OTAs where there's maybe just like one nerf and mostly buffs. I kind of like that. But very notably, they nerfed the GOAT. One of the absolute greatest cards of all time, Merlin. And this is a card that, like, listen, I know that there's a lot of opinions on. I think that this is one of the least problematic, super good cards in Marvel Snap, where it's like, it is super good, but it doesn't feel brutally unfair to play against. You know what I mean? Like, its power level has always been so consistently solid, but it's never felt consistently, like, it's not a game-breaking card. But it's definitely, to some degree, a meta-warping card, especially if you like someone like, I don't know, Magic, like I do. So we're going to go through the OTA here, but right off the rip, I would love to know your opinion on the Merlin nerf, taking him from a 2-3 to a 2-2.
Yeah, I was kind of gonna say the same thing that you did. He reminds me very much of Jeff, where like in the early days of two drops, Jeff was like in every deck, but you kind of weren't really mad when you saw Jeff come down. You were just like, yeah, of course they're playing Jeff. And Merlin feels the same way. He does feel a little oppressive. I'm like you. I really like Magic decks. I really want to rely on turn 7, and before you kind of just had to worry about like a Nocturne or a Scarlet Witch or Legion started to become very oppressive when he was in every deck. But now I kind of avoid playing Magic decks completely now. And if I do play a deck where they are relying on Magic, I either opt for like a Luna Snow line or like another way to get extra cards out or something like that, because I just know that they're gonna have location change when I don't want it to happen. So that's the only really oppressive Merlin feelings I have. But as far as like 2-3 to a 2-2, I don't think that that's a nerf at all. I don't think that's, and I know they really like leaning into the, well, one power could shift, dramatically the play rate or something like that. But for a card like Merlin, I don't think it does. Especially when one of his spells, I think it is the location change spell, gives him +2 power. So it's
Yeah.
like you're not really gonna miss it if you get enough of these anyway, right? If you get 2 or 3 of these, then Merlin is still like a 2/7 at the end of the game, so it doesn't really matter.
No, and yeah, Omniversal Presence is incredibly powerful. It has single-handedly taken Magic out of the meta altogether. And it's kind of sad because you're right. Like, you used to be able to rely on Magic for getting those magical turn 7 plays, squeezing things in, squeezing lines, and you couldn't do in 6 turns. And now it's like, well, you have so many options. Luna Snow, as you mentioned, is a fantastic option. I still can't believe she's a 3-6. She probably gets nerfed down to a 3-5. I think that she was buffed to a 3-6. Be like, hey, like, you probably should be playing this. Like, no one's even trying. This card's really good. And then don't forget that even an Electro was a 3-2 at one point. It's now a 3-5 with legitimate support too. So yeah, a lot has changed. And for Merlin, it's been all about the incantations or the skills, really. They're all pretty damn good. And especially Polymorph. I actually think that while a lot Omniversal Presence gets a lot of like fireworks for what it does, and obviously it is meta warping to some degree, I think that Polymorph is incredible. Because even some of those like Werewolf by Night mid-range decks were running the Sentries and Nihilist base package with Hood and everything, just because like you could polymorph that Void into something legitimately powerful, like turning a Void into a Vision. That's good. You take that, right? So I do think the card overall is totally fine. The decks of the week this week, as we go into the weekends and stuff like that, we saw kind of early stats as to how Merlin was affected. It was largely unaffected. It still looked like an incredible card, so ultimately not too much to be disappointed about there. The rest are all buffs, though, which is kind of exciting. Now, there's a card that came out very recently, but didn't perform as well as perhaps people were hoping or expecting, and that was Fantomex. Fantomex going from a 4-6 to a 4-7. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really want to like Fantomex, but I think the having the end there, discarded and destroyed instead of or, it's just making him too pigeonholed into this weird, combination of archetypes that when other decks are so optimized right now and they're doing what they're doing so perfectly and so often, even if you get Fantomex perfectly, the perfect curve, the perfect trigger, he goes off exactly how you want. It's just not gonna do anything to like a perfect curve Shu deck or that new ramp deck or a HELA that hits Corv into Odin or something like that. It's just not going to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like he feels like the kind of card that, well, is pretty good when like numbers wise, he's really good when you get everything to line up. Truthfully and honestly, it's a lot of hoops to jump through. And so it makes sense that he needs a little bit of extra power, but what I think he really needs is more cards that kind of work alongside him to a positive effect. He feels like he just needs more support, and the hybrid archetype that exists right now, it just doesn't feel like it's worth playing.
Yeah, and I think there was an opportunity. I think Glenn commented on it. There was an opportunity. Someone asked like, "Hey, with this new discard or and destroy archetype, do you want to revisit Sabretooth and like make him playable?" And he was like, "Nah, Sabretooth's cool." But like that was such a good opportunity to like just add legacy support to something that they're trying to push now. And like you said, if it had just a few more pieces that did what he was doing, it would feel really good. Because I really like Wild Child, and I think Wild Child coming out at the same time as him was almost like the synergy he needed. But then you ended up just Wild Child by itself was good enough in decks that were trying to do something like this, like Marrow decks or whatever you're trying to do with him. Because Wild Child is pretty interesting, but Fantomex is just, I don't know. Maybe if he was a three, but even then, like you said, like the hoops are just too much.
I love that you bring up Marrow because Marrow is by far one of my favorite cards that was released last season, and they were absolute bangers last season. I think this card is really punching above its weight. I love it. It's great. But it didn't get buffed because I don't think it needs a buff. It doesn't need a nerf either, I suppose. But this card is great. I love that you brought it up. Let's go through the move package now because at the OTA, we saw a significant change in the move package overall. And it is going to start with Vulture. Vulture being the one drop that the move package now relies on. I don't want to say relies on because it's one way to play move, but it's not my preferred way to play move anymore, that's for sure. What are your thoughts on changing Vulture from a 1/2 to a 1/3? And I mean, let's remember, we used to have Human Torch as the one costed powerhouse of move, and that's no longer the case.
I am a big Team Torch advocate, as you might know. Move Bounce was like one of my favorite archetypes before it kind of got gutted. Some people might not consider it gutted, but I started God splitting every card in that deck because I just considered it so safe. Like it was so hard to play and it was only like oppressive at the very, very top, like 10% of players. And I was like, okay, I can just start investing into this deck. And then all of a sudden one day it just got like completely gutted and changed. And now Human Torch, what is this, like his third nerf that he's gone through? So yeah, all those credits wasted on those splits there. But Vulture, he can get pretty big if you get him down on one and you have like Sparky and Ghost Spider and you're playing like a Madam Web kind of archetype. He can get pretty big. But at the end of the day, like I was playing a deck the other day that had Electra in it, and Killmonger is still around. So just having a one drop be your powerhouse, you're just asking. There's so many ways for it to be addressed. You're just asking for trouble. And I think bouncing it and having that protection is still the only way to play it. But there's more often than not now, I have a plan to throw priority, and I still have too much power on the board from turns 1 to 5. Where if I bounce like my two biggest cards, I still have priority. So there's still like situations where you're like, oh my god, how do I still have priority? And this Vulture's gonna get completely destroyed when I drop him back down.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Well, first of all, if someone's going to Electro snipe you or Electra snipe you, they deserve the dub. Come on now, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But you bring
I
up a really
forgot
good
what
point.
I was playing from another streamer was cooking with Electra, and I was like, oh my god, if this takes off, we're finished.
So I know that you said that you were an enjoyer of the move bounce archetype. Like you and Sides are obviously, of the two of the big streamers, you guys were definitely the ones playing that archetype. But I would make the argument that I actually thought that archetype was particularly uninteractive, especially when you would play against it. And for Marvel Snap as a whole, would you disagree with me saying that the more modern version of move that uses the Hydra Stomper, where you got like lots of moving parts with like Spider Punk and things like that, with like all the powers being just generally higher and not relying on like one tower of power and that Human Torch Tribunal play and stuff like that? Like, do you prefer this version of move overall for the entire like Marvel Snap player base, or would you rather go back to the move bounce times?
I liked. Obviously, I think the Hydra Stomper version is much more fair, and I think if Marvel Snap is trying to move into a less especially for the mid tier players, a less oppressive feeling than this is correct. Like nine times out of ten. As someone who um, has a bit of bounce, non-move bounce fatigue. Like I'm so sick of of just like traditional bounce and like werewolf decks. I feel um, like there was a time where if I wanted to win, I played a werewolf deck, and now I know if I want to win, I could still play a werewolf deck, and I just don't want to anymore. And a lot of people don't have a problem with that. They're just like, oh, I want to win today, I'll play a werewolf deck. But I have so much fatigue from that, and I think move bounce was just different enough where I could still play bounce and not feel like not have that fatigue feeling from like general bounce. So that's kind of like why I preferred it to traditional move, and I also just don't like traditional move in general. I do think it's very good when you hit your cards and you play it correctly, and I think this Hydra Stomper version is very powerful. But just in general, not for my style of play. But I do think if we're talking about less oppressive, the Hydra Stomper is much more fair, I think.
Right off the top, I have to say that I'm jealous that you're fatigued on just one deck. I'm just fatigued in general. I'm
Yeah,
not
no,
even
I
talking
hear
about
that.
Marvel Snap. I'm just fatigued, man. Like that's just I'm just tired.
I think for I think it was like 3 or 4 seasons, like the best decks kind of didn't change, and they either got more tools or the tools that other decks got weren't strong enough to compete. So I completely get that. I've been feeling it too. The top decks for some time were not only were they not fun to play against, but they also weren't my play style, so I couldn't even just like rage start playing them because I just didn't want to. So that's a tough spot when like the best decks aren't for you, and the B tier or C tier decks just can't even keep up with them because they're like tier zero.
Something I will add, and this happened in Riftbound. So Riftbound's a physical TCG that I've been playing. Lots of you guys would probably know that I actually do a podcast for Riftbound as well. It's called Into the Rift with Joe Curley. Actually, it's a specimen from the Marvel Snap days. But
Oh, right.
yeah. So one of the things that came up in Riftbound was that like everyone kind of knows like the meta decks that are like people are playing in tournaments and stuff like that. And the meta kind of got to some degree, I don't want to say figured out, but people knew what they were playing and what was good. And then someone just said like, no, like I'm gonna cook. Like I'm gonna do something unique. I don't want to play those. I don't vibe with what's meta right now. I'm gonna make something that I vibe with, and I'm gonna have fun playing. And I don't care if people think it's good or not. And it ended up being an absolute banger. And they turned their play style and their archetype that they like to play into what is now becoming meta. So the reason why I tell you this story is because if you're like, I don't want to play werewolf decks, or I don't want to play Shu Lao, despite the fact that he's kicking ass all over the place. I don't want to play those. I want to play something else. Play something else. Seriously, I'm not joking. Play something else. If you're like, you know what, I want to bring back Evo, a new version of Evo. I want to bring back Moon Girl Evo with like, magic. Do it. Like actually do it. You might cook something cool, right? And so I want the people listening to know that like sometimes you don't have all the cards in a game, right? What that can potentially do is also breed creativity. Approach it like a challenge. Instead of aiming for collection complete, be like, what do I have access to? And how can I use what I have in a creative way that can catch my opponents by surprise? And I think that sometimes when you have a constrained deck building like challenge, you might breed more creativity than you expect. So I love the fact you mentioned like the meta just wasn't for me, right? There's a lot of people that probably feel that way right now. And instead of like forcing themselves to play decks they don't want to play, I'm encouraging you to cook and have fun again. And that's something that I've been trying to do. Instead of grinding ladder or grinding rank or anything like that, I'm like, I want to play Marvel Snap. I'm going to play some Marvel Snap. And I'm doing what I love about the game. And I'm not forcing myself to do any of the stuff I don't want to do in the game. And I think that's healthier overall.
Yeah, I agree. And if you've ever tuned into one of my streams, like all I do is cook. The first thing I do when I sign on to a stream is I think of a card I want to play with, and then I try to build around it, and that's like the entire stream drilling that that archetype or that cook into the ground until it works. Um, but I do think the nature of Marvel Snap, and I think the reason you even have to say this, the decks are 12 cards, so it's so easy to net deck, and it's so easy to find like 7 cards that have synergy, and then the rest of your deck kind of fills itself, right? Because there's only so many either tech options or good cards that go along with those cards. So I agree. I think people should get out there and cook, but I do think that there's like an underlying, and especially as we get more like synergistic pieces for these decks, like if we just keep making pieces, move is just going to get more refined. If we just keep making bounce pieces, which I think we'll have an interesting discussion about Lin Lee in a second. Um, it becomes harder and harder to experiment because your deck almost builds itself at some point, and you have to break out of that mentality, I think.
That's perfect point, and probably a conversation for another day. With only 12 cards in the deck, as you add more cards, the ceiling rises for the archetypes.
I think it was Cougar just posted a deck, and he was like, "Look at this win." It was like he went like 17-2, and he's like, "Look at this new deck, I love it." And Binks commented, it was a Victoria hand deck, and Binks replied and said, "Oh, I can't believe you don't have Moon Girl in here." And Cougar was just like, "There's like literally nothing I can cut. Like I want Moon Girl in here, and I can't cut any of the pieces." And him and Binks had a back and forth about it. But I was like, "This is everyone's problem right now, is they want to fit decks, cards into their deck, and there's just nothing to cut."
Yeah, definitely. Fan fade, do you want to talk about it, or do you care? Going from a 4/4 to a 4/5, still the same effect. Still activate, give your other units here +1 power, move them to the right. I don't care.
I don't care either. But I do think the reason we might care is that it is a step towards where it should be, which is probably like a 4/7 or something, or wherever it originally was nerfed from.
All right. So maybe care at some point, just not necessarily right now. Now, I care about this one a little more. I'm having a difficult time typing because my whatever. This is like an Alex setup problem. The chords for my setup right now are running across my keyboard. I don't know why I've done this. So when I try to type, my keyboard, like all the cables hit the other buttons. Anyways, I got to figure that out. Multiple man going from a 2/3 to a 2/4. I'm about this one here because when I saw this, I was thinking, first of all, I know people lean towards like, okay, can we actually buff this, do like some Sparky stuff, Aranya stuff, and like actually get like big multiple men bounce across the board? You could do that, but space in Marvel Snap is obviously a factor, and board space and like managing it is legitimately becoming more important, especially as more cards come out that utilize it. But this gave me a thought about like, damn, I want to play Phoenix Force again. It was one of my absolute favorite archetypes, but this is only one net power on Phoenix Force, so I don't know if it actually moves the needle. But Phoenix Force has more support with a lot of these like fastball specials. There's ways to destroy things now that make Phoenix Force more playable, so I think I got to cook there.
Yeah, and I was a big Phoenix Force Tribunal enjoyer, and Torch was a big piece of that because if you could get him up to like 300 power, then you drop Tribunal, and all of a sudden you're winning everything. But the backup line was multiple man, and sometimes he was just too weak enough to bring home the W. But maybe with this, one extra power 4 times, wherever you put him, that move the needle enough to make it win more often. But yeah, I think Tribunal is in a good spot right now because not really anyone's running any ongoing counters. So maybe this brings that archetype back.
No question. And at the end of the day, it needed a buff anyways. So it's a very low risk buff because it definitely needed something. Now, I'm going to say that this is the Clea buff from 1/2 to a 1/3. Clea being that when this card permanently gains power, add the Flames of Faltine to your hand, whether it's in hand or in play. So whether anytime, if it's in your hand or if it's in play, Clea gets buffed, you add this. This feels like it's getting ready for next week for Shang-Chi's release, because I think that when you activate or unlock the potential of Shang-Chi's rings, Clea is going to feast there. Do you see anything else? I think this is just they're moving in preparation of that new card, in my opinion.
I do think Clea in general is a sleeper deck. There's not a lot of Luke Cage running around right now. There are some stragglers still playing the Ajax kind of Wiccan tempo list, but I do think Affliction and Clea, is a slept on archetype. I think when Man Spider was like the flavor of the month, he was getting way too big for a deck like this to really make moves, but that has died down a bit, and now we're seeing a lot of Shu Lao, and that I feel like Shu Lao is much more counterable than Man Spider, where you either have the counter or you don't. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Clea decks, and I think that archetype is slept on a little bit.
And I suppose that Clea obviously generating a 1-drop that you can use alongside Shu Lao is probably good for the season as a whole. So
Yeah, or even what's his name? The little dragon who's been
Lockheed.
afflicting people. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still convinced that Lockheed's animation is not an animation, it's a bug, but whatever, that's a whole other conversation. Iron Lad, who, if you've ever read the comic, Kang, Only Myself Left to Conquer, which I seem to bring up every single week somehow, you would know who Iron Lad is. But this here, it was ironically, one of Cozy's favorite cards, right? And now it's just completely fallen off. I think that the last bastion of Iron Lad being played was in like old school Tribunal. Old school Tribunal was the last time I think he was ever played. I'd even seen him on occasion played in like budget-based like Howard the Duck ongoing decks where everything's ongoing except for Iron Lad basically, so you could reach in, hit Spectrum or whatever. But outside of that, like he saw absolutely no play. He was a 4-6, completely fell off the map. Now he's a 4-7. Do you think this moves the needle? I kind of don't think it does.
Yeah, this is another one where the problem with the card isn't its power level. I think Iron Lad is one of those include if you have room type of cards, and it's very win more almost like Iron Lad. When Iron Lad hits something, it's either saving the day, right? It's either hitting that last draw that was the bottom card,
like the HELA or something that you were digging for,
or it's like, oh, I was winning anyway. Let's see what Iron Lad hits, and it hits something explosive, and you were winning anyway. I remember a time where Iron Lad was like one of the best cards in the game, and he was like in every deck. And now like it really speaks to the power level of decks right now, where he just hasn't found a home. But yeah, I think one of these is one more power to a card like this just isn't going to bring it back into anything.
A couple of years back, if you were to be like, yo, Jeff, Iron Lad, those are cards you're not going to play. Like you don't care about anymore. It'd been wild to even
It's funny to
that.
think about that.
Yeah. So Iron Lad, not much movement there. We have a couple more changes, 2 more, one of which is pretty significant because it is the pay to win change. You go from a 3-2 to a 3-4 on Dragon of the Moon, or as KM said, Dragoon of the Mon. On reveal, steal 1 power from even costed cards in all hands. They basically said no one's playing it and no one really cared, so they gave it a very significant buff from a 3-2 to a 3-4. I'll be honest with you, I joked about it being pay to win. This is perfect because if they wanted to really pay to win, they would have put Xiao Lao, who was so obviously more powerful, as the Super Premium Season Pass. So before you get your pitchforks out, know that they clearly knew that Xiao Lao was better than Dragon of the Moon and placed them accordingly. But this card actually did need a buff. In my testing, it felt pretty rough. You were playing a suboptimal archetype. You're playing a Ronin shell that already it's like, I don't even know if Master Mold is ever worth playing. This maybe gives you a chance. It was just
Mold.
You love Master Mold? Okay, give me
Yeah,
the code.
Master Mold of Joy. I really want him to be good, but he's just not there.
No, he's not there at all. And I mean, so Dragon of the Moon, like whatever. But okay, I'm actually interested in your take on Mold because Master Mold for me, first of all, I paid way too much money for this Kim Yacinto variant.
I have that one too.
Yeah, this was like in a bundle that was like, I think it was like $100 bundle. I'm like, I really don't want, like, this is so stupid. Why would I ever do this?
Well, it came with the Darkhawk too.
The Darkhawk as well. That's right. Yeah, man, going back, there was a time where I was like just scooping up bundles. Now I don't remember the last time I bought one, which is unfortunate. I still think the season pass represents a tremendous value in Marvel Snap. I think it does. For me, I buy the season pass every single time, no questions. But some of the bundles I still think are overpriced. Even the gold bundles I think are leaving some to be desired. I don't know what they can do to kind of improve the conversion rate on that. But
has been terrible.
It's been awful. It's been awful.
I was looking forward to this Ravonna one, and
yeah,
number one has tokens in it. It like completely tanks the value of the bundle. But yeah, it's just I don't know. They everyone wants them to lean into monetizing cosmetics, and that's a great idea when the other parts of the game reflect that, right? So like the other parts of the game aren't reflecting you charging $100 for cosmetics. They're just everything is $100 now. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I just ignore all the $100 bundles. I mean, I'm glad. First of all, if you're a whale out there, and like, I don't ignore those $100 bundles. I buy those bundles. Well, actually, first of all, thank you, because a lot of people get mad at the whales, but it's the whales that keep the lights on. The whales allow the free-to-play players to have a free ride, right? So, anyways, yeah. So Master Mold, I've always said I thought it would have been cool if Master Mold added 2 Sentinels to your opponent's hand, and then also had the ongoing gets +1 for every Sentinel in play, or something like that. and like it was like a 2-1. It also gets benefits from your Sentinels, and if they have to play theirs down, you buff their Master
Oh,
Mold
I
or
love that.
something like
Yeah,
that would be
that'd
kind of
be
cool. Also, an Aurora card, just throwing it out there, but we shouldn't be talking about Master Mold here because there's one more card we have to
well, I
talk
did
about.
want to say something about the moon. Is it feels like they're trying to make this even cost means the moon connection, right? Because Moon Knight also discards an even cost. So if they're leaning into this moon is related to even, I wish there was like some kind of synergy there. Because as soon as I really want to like Dragon of the Moon, but like you said, he's just like not there yet. And I tried to make like like a moon deck where like everything was related to him and Moon Knight, and it just wasn't connecting. Maybe that's a silly idea, but if they're making this connection, then I want to like see if there was something there with that. But um, yeah, maybe the problem is that it's all hands. Maybe it just needs to be your enemy, like him hurting you, and then forces you to include Luke Cage, or you kind of make it an Ajax deck, or you leave out even costs completely. Like it really just kind of pigeonholes you into what you can do with him.
What you got to do is you got to discard him with Moon Knight and then bring him back with Khonshu, and then you've completed the Moon Circle, right? Yes, that's the
That's
goal.
actually exactly what I'm trying to do.
That was exactly it. Um, Zombie Galacti, not getting a numeric change, but a very important text change. Like I think people kind of glossed over this, but I'm like, listen, as someone who I made the video for Zombie Galacti, and I remember like playing it at the time and like doing like in the kind of preview, I was like, this is before I released the video, kind of in preparation of it. I was like, oh, I don't think this card's good. Like, I think this card's lacking something. And obviously they buffed it. And as we get more support for, well, Merlin getting nerfed opens up like magic lines. We're getting more support in terms of the ramp lines as well. But the big thing here is now it will say, so game start, choose 6 other characters, not other cards. So if you put skills in your deck, you can actually almost ensure that like, so you have like Majestic Wingbeat, for instance, in your deck, it will not transform. It will not even waste a proc. That can make it so you can guarantee that your Wasp or your Yellow Jacket or whatever your deck design around Zombie Galacti will actually hit what you want it to hit. So I actually think that being able to shape your deck using skills, in addition to the additional power that Zombie Galacti already received, this is probably good. And don't forget Maverick, who I think is a banger card, supports the hell out of Zombie Galacti. So I think we're very close. We're probably a cook away from Zombie Galacti being legit because I think it's probably closer than people think.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with all that. And I think when he launched, I was as a Galactus fan, I was completely disinterested in him. I was just like, I don't see how this could possibly be good, specifically because of the spell interaction. I think that was something I wanted to bring up with Iron Lad. Is I think Iron Lad isn't good because he could still hit skills, and
Yeah.
when it hits a skill at a opportune moment where you need him to hit something really powerful, and he hits something that just does absolutely nothing to the board. Yeah, and I think all of these cards where it's the next card, it should always say next character. It should always skip over the skill or something like that, because it's just having Silver Sable stay 0 is keeping her locked out of being included in decks. And like there's so many examples of that. If something happened to me I think while I was playing High Voltage, where I think I dropped Blob on Krakoa, and it hit us. The next card was a spell, so I just did nothing. Like it was such a waste. Um, but yeah, I think all these interactions where it could be character need to be like scrubbed and changed like immediately for a lot of these cards to flourish again. Um, but yeah, I've been enjoying Galacti now with the change, and I think the skill thing was a big one. I saw some people want him to hit skills, and they had some kind of explanation, but I didn't know. I wasn't really getting it. I don't see any world where, because it doesn't matter if they go off or not. You just want them on the board. So I'm not sure why some people would want him to hit skills, but um, as soon as they made this change, I started playing him and I started enjoying it. But this is one of those decks where it does rely on magic. So I was using Luna Snow. I was using certain other, ways to get him out early. Because even when I had Limbo on the board, I needed like a contingency plan. I was like, if he dropped, a location change at any point, I'm gonna be in a bad spot. So you always have to like play with that in mind now.
I was thinking about what you were saying. First of all, I'm so glad I'm not the only one that uses the term skill and spell interchangeably. Um, You're probably gonna get corrected in the comment section, but that's
Oh
fine.
yeah.
For sure. But like, I think that like, I think it's a good change. And if you're someone out there that's like, oh, I want Zombie Galacti to hit skills, like, I would like to hear that take in the
Yeah,
comments. Like,
they
I
gave me
actually would
the
love to hear it.
explanation, but I don't remember what it was because I was immediately like, why would I ever want that? I just like stopped listening.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. But all right, so that more or less is the OTA. I had a point to bring up about the Majestic Windbeat that I since forgot. But let's talk about Lin Li, the Iron Fist, a 2/2 that creates the Sword of Fushi, a 2/2. Now, the way they read is Iron Fist is a on reveal, adds the Sword of Fushi to another location, and the Sword of Fushi reads ongoing. If Lin Li Iron Fist is here, he has +7 power. I would be interested in your take here. I'll give you the floor before I give you what I think here, but how was your experience playing Lin Li the Iron Fist?
I actually skipped him. I don't think he's good. It seems like a lot of hoops to jump through to get a 2/9 on the board. I do think that he might have a home in a bounce shell where you have a bunch of swords on the board and maybe you converge them all into one spot and he's actually like a 18 or whatever you can make him. But other than that, I just think again we're going back to this situation where like the optimized decks are just too big and doing what they want to do way too often for a card like Lin Li to be good, I think.
Hold on. This is awesome. I love this because this is like the first time people assume that content creators will just buy everything out. And I mean, I just buy everything out. But you made a conscious choice to skip Lin Li Iron Fist. And I think that people listening would obviously relate to that. And I want you to actually go through like what your decision matrix decision matrix is. Go through the entire decision matrix as to how you determine whether or not you're buying a card. No, but seriously, like what do you take into consideration when you're deciding what to skip, what to buy, how to spend your resources, and why Lin Li Iron Fist just didn't make that cut ultimately? Like, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I actually even when I started streaming, I started out free to play, and I for the most part I still am. I get the season pass is provided to me now, so even though I am not spending money, I can't in good conscience call myself free to play because I don't have the free to play experience anymore, which is not having the season pass card. So I don't like to say that I'm free to play anymore, but I do not spend any money on the game. The bundles that I buy are always gold bundles. The season pass is provided to me, and all the resources I get are earned in the game. So I'm kind of like pseudo free to play for the most part. But I don't like to tout that because I do remember the time where I actually was free to play, and that's such a different experience in the game. You're having a completely different time than everyone else who has the latest and greatest stuff. And it's not a resource issue. I think I have something like 300,000 tokens right now. So I could buy every card that comes out for the next, X amount of months or even years or something like that. But I think Marvel Snap is a very expensive game. And I think at any moment, there could be like 3 or 4 months in a row where I need every card. And then my token repository is like gone. So for cards where there are certain situations where I'm like, oh, this is a bad card, but it looks really fun, and so I buy it. But in the case of Lin Li, where I already have, I think he's only good in bounce. I already have bounce fatigue, so I know that I'm not interested in playing it and I don't want it. And he looks pretty weak. He doesn't look like a must-have card. I'd rather just save my tokens, and then maybe there's a chance where when I open a Series 5 card, he's like the bonus card that I get with it. I've been opening like some 2 card packs lately, so maybe he'll be in there or something, and I don't have to like worry about acquiring him. But that's kind of like my mentality there, where I can get everything, but I've just always had a free to play mindset. So I still, even though I can get everything, I still operate like that basically.
I want to make sure I didn't mishear. How many tokens do you have?
I have 300,000 tokens from being frugal. It's been acquired and it's been saved over time.
I was going to say the most insulting thing that one person can say about Lin Li Iron Fist is that someone with 300,000 tokens decided to skip him to conserve resources.
Something
That is
happened,
like,
right? There was like a conversion event or something like that. I remember a bunch of things that I had turned into tokens. I forgot what it was, but that's where they all came from.
I don't remember. I remember there was a thing where something about the collector's reserves were being changed in a way, and then
Mm.
people had done the math to be like the spotlight caches were being
Oh no,
removed,
yeah,
and
that
then
was when it first. There was something recent because I remember.
yeah, I didn't participate in that. I was like, I'm not gonna do any of that.
I think it was
But it sounded like you
Thieves.
got a
Thieves
lot, yeah.
posted that she had 1 million tokens from something. I forgot what it was. Um, but that, yeah, so whatever that was, that's where most of them came from.
Ah, I see, I see. Maybe I should have partaked in that, but so for what it's worth, Lindley, it was a weird video for me. I actually crushed with this card. I actually crushed with this card. I was streaming with it, and like I was getting people coming in and be like, "Oh, you know, this streamer thinks it sucks. This streamer, everyone says it sucks." And I'm like, I have like a 70 something percent win rate over the last couple hours with it, right? Like I'm crushing with it. I was playing a Spider-Man Noir deck with it because it
Oh,
allows
nice.
you, yeah, man,
Michael.
yeah, dude, it was so good. I loved it, and it didn't ultimately like, it didn't shake up the meta. Like it honestly, even when I went to what's it called, Untapped, no, like very few plays on the deck that I posted because I think the people just decided like, oh, I'm out on Iron Fist, or like Lindley Iron Fist, of course. And across the board, the top performing shell's a 53% win rate deck, barely positive cube rate, 52% with some cubes on it, and that's like a Hellion, Madam Web style deck with Hydra Stomper, like what you'd expect it to be. But I felt that the Spider-Man Noir stuff, with like even Agent Venom, I thought was really cool because you buff up Lindley Iron Fist by 1, and then you lose 1 off of the Spider-Man Noir, but you're pulling Iron Men, you're pulling Cassandra Novas, you're pulling like awesome cards. And the nice thing about this is that with Lindley Iron Fist, you play something on 1, you play Lindley Iron Fist on 2, you play Cassandra Nova on 3, and because of the Sword of Fushi and Lindley Iron Fist adding 4 on turn 2 in terms of its power, the Spider-Man Noir is now active for turn 4 on curve. And so that's why I liked that particular shell. But it was one of those things where like in my review video, I was like, listen, I crushed, but I'm not convinced this is a good card. Like
Yeah.
it might have just been a blessed run where like
Yeah.
I took the turd to the Super Bowl, and like who knows how that happened. But like literally I had a positive experience, but I was very cautious. I was like, I don't think you should get this card. Like
Yeah.
you got to wait till the end of the week and see how it shapes up. And ultimately I think it's underperformed.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm a big Agent Venom fan too. And as soon as they buffed Noir, that's exactly what I tried him in first too, because I had the same mindset. I was like, okay, I'm hurt. I'm giving Noir -1, but everything else is good, so
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter. But that's interesting. I didn't think of him in that, and I think that's a pretty good home for him too. But yeah, like you said, like 53% win rate. That's good. It's serviceable. You can play that and win, but you're gonna try really hard, right? Like you have to put
Yeah.
a lot of effort into it when you can just play Shu Lao and probably win more and with less effort. And I think when they're trying to convince people to give these not so sure cards a chance, it's very hard for them. They gave 100 extra tokens this week for the weekend missions to try to convince people to give them a shot, but like it's just not enough to make people dip into their savings for a card like this when they can just save for like an auto win card basically.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And for what it's worth, the 53% win rate shell was an Aurora base deck, which I thought was
Oh,
particularly
okay.
cool. And for those out there that are like, Alex, what about C2? You're not talking about C2. I looked it up for you guys. It's a 58% win rate. So
Ooh.
there's that. No. Sorry. I said 58. I meant 48.
Oh no.
48, very different number. My apologies. It is a
I was like,
48%
wait, I
win
want to
rate.
try that now.
Yeah, not 58. My bad. 48% win rate on C2. So that's that there. But that's not the only card that came out. Dragonlord. Dragonlord entered the world of Marvel Snap, a 5/5 that reads, on reveal, put a card from your hand here. Which, as I mentioned when I previewed it, I cannot believe this text didn't exist already. Like, this was clearly an intern going through the game and be like, yo, does the put a card here text not exist? We have Red Wing, which is a more complicated version of what Dragonlord should probably be doing anyways. What are your thoughts on Dragonlord? I kind of actually like the card. I think it's good.
Yeah, he is a card that is exactly my play style. I think he fits into the types of decks that I enjoy. I was a big Doom 2099 fan. I really like just playing one big thing a turn, and being strategic about where I'm putting them, and thinking, having the foresight to think, okay, if I put this here, how am I going to win? What am I going to drop, and how am I going to win the other lanes later? And I think Dragonlord plays into that. I think the only weakness that he has specifically in the current state of Snap, the current meta, and the current decks that perform well, we're very like either combo heavy or you want to play your cards yourself in very specific ways and in very specific places. So having Dragon Lord drag it out early and have it go off not where you want it to go is not very good. So I think Dragon Lord fits, especially in the new ramp deck that's been going around. I think that's like a perfect home for him. But other than that, like him pulling out your Shu Lao early and buffing the wrong card, like you don't want him to do that. And that puts you in a spot where like if Dragon Lord is the best thing you can play on turn 5 and you don't want him to pull 3 of your 5 cards from your hand, you're like, oh man, do I play him? Like it puts you in this tough spot where you're like, obviously I have to play something, but I don't want him to do 3 out of the 5 things that he can do. So that's my only reservations with him. I think if you're playing him in a deck where anything he pulls is good, like an Isan ramp, that's perfect. But other than that, it's kind of like a tight spot.
Yeah, so what I think Dragon Lord's benefiting from is that when War Machine got changed to a 5/9, the new ramp archetypes really started to take off. But it wasn't just War Machine. I threw up War Machine here, but it was also Chamber that did a tremendous amount to make those kind of like ramp shells worth playing. There's no question about it. Chamber really helped those ramp shells. And for
Yeah,
Dragon Lord, like you have tons of things you can pull down. You got the Red Hulks, you got the Galactus First Steps, the Gigantos, the Infinauts. Obviously, Infinauts going to be in that deck, right? But what I found particularly fascinating about Dragon Lord was that you have the obvious turn-off valve of Stardust. So I think that they were even a little conservative with Dragon Lord's power. I think they could have made him bigger than a 5/5. I really do think so. Because if you think about it, Red Wing, although it requires that activation of the movement, is a 3/5. From a power perspective, Dragon Lord is not that strong. Obviously, it has an immensely powerful ability, right? Putting a card down is cool, but it has the downside of what you just finished explaining. But you have the release valve in Stardust, and Stardust is making a lot of the meta-based shells. So even though I came away impressed with Dragon Lord, I actually wondered, would I, if I had limited resources, would I invest in Dragon Lord? Thankfully, you don't have to make that choice too hard because he is accessible through the free to play realm of the limited time game mode. And even then, 3,000 tokens for a Series 4 card is, well, half of what a Series 5 is. But more importantly, 800 gold into the premium season pass, then literally finishing like one set of missions to unlock the card is probably the cheapest card you'll get in Marvel Snap outside of it being given to you for free. So I lean towards it's kind of worth having because I actually really like it, specifically if you have Chamber already.
Yeah, I agree. And I think because the barrier to get him is so low, we'll probably see him in a lot of stuff, just because so many more people than usual have him. And that breeds experimentation, right? Maybe we'll see him. But I will say that I hate Stardust. I hate him. He's the new Mobius. I feel like he shuts down so much stuff that I want to do. That he is my public enemy #1 right now. For 2 seasons now, I've hit Infinite with HELA, Chamber HELA, and when I see a Stardust,
That must be very frustrating.
it sure is.
I don't play much Stardust. Even though like he was a card that at first when I read, it was so funny. When we first previewed this card, there was like 2 camps. This card's going to do nothing or this card's broken. Even on like the week of testing, it seemed like, yeah, like it's not a bad card. It seems totally fine, but like you can't really use it offensively that effectively. Like you're like, oh yeah, I can use it with Gladiator and not accidentally bring down their Giganto. Like, sure, that's not what this card ended up being at all, right? It ended up being like a snap condition into turn 6 when you know the Surfer deck's holding Brood and they're not going to be able to do their thing. Or it's against a HELA player who you're going to absolutely clap, right? Because they're not going to be able to do their thing, or Conchu player who's not going to be able to do their thing. And honestly, the amount of misplays, like anytime I have played Stardust, the amount of people that will still try to play Broods out or whatever, I'm like, damn, man, because it doesn't do like the Cosmo at least tries to warn you with little blip. Stardust just sits there with like a middle finger sticking up, right? Like just doesn't really tell
something
you.
like that.
Yeah, but I can understand the hate for sure.
But just to touch on what you just said, there's so many. I play against so many people who are playing Stardust against me, and then they try to play into like that location that swaps a card with your deck, and they like they don't realize that they're turning it off for themselves or like something like that too. So um, yeah, I don't know how, but there's still like a learning curve with Stardust.
I watch someone play Stardust and then leave Bar Sinister open, and I'm like, they're gonna screw this up. Like I know that they're not, and then sure enough, because I had already played into Bar Sinister for some reason, I don't know what it was, and then sure enough, they played it and only one card went down. Like that's clearly not what you expected to happen, which is kind
Amazing.
of funny. But we got more dragons. We've talked about a couple dragons here today, but there's a new dragon on the block, Fin Fang Foom, who's coming out, and this is a chunky card. You were just talking about HELA. I think that I'm going to have to give you the floor on Fin Fang Foom here.
Yeah.
It is a 7/12 that reads, on reveal, gain the power of the front row enemy cards here. Interrobang, is this the card that HELA's been waiting for or what? Like, tell me, what's your level of excitement for this card?
Complete hella fodder, especially because he's a 7. Like, when are you? Yeah, other than the ramp deck, who I don't think wants to play this. I guess maybe they'll experiment with it and see if it's good. But you just want this to pop out and do its thing without you playing it, and that's just complete hella fodder. And I think a lot of people know that already. So there's probably going to be more and more Stardust when Fin Fang Foom comes out. But yeah, this I don't even think you drop Scar for this. I think you play both of them and you try to get Scar out early manually and let Fin Fang Foom be your 7 that comes back or something like that, because yeah, it's just so even if it's gaining 6 power, like from like a 2-3 power things in the front row, like that's still a 7/18. So yeah, I think this card's gonna be really good.
It's also worth noting, just like how I talked about how like, oh, they buffed Clea. That's a change for Shang-Chi coming out. Nerfing Merlin and potentially bringing the Merlin play rate down with Omniversal Presence being what it is might open up room for Magic-based decks who, I mean, HELA's not really playing Magic anymore, right? Like it never really has for a while. But I'm just saying that like the more greedy, like, oh, we're going to get this 7 energy, whether it's through Fallen One or whether it's through Luna Snow, Electro Ramp or whatever, or literally just using Magic. By nerfing Merlin, you open up that laneway for Magic a little bit, because the benefit of Magic too is that you're going to have more options. You're going to be able to read, okay, where do I get the most value based on their board presence? Like my opponent's board presence. They've had another turn to put things down, fill the front rows, so you can maybe use Fin Fang Foom to more effectiveness. Just something I thought about. I still think HELA is going to be the way to play it. Don't get me wrong, but it just occurred to me that nerfing Merlin does open up a Magic line with Fin Fang Foom ever so slightly.
Yeah, I think I'm in a place in the meta where I am gravitating away from Magic decks just until they address
Yep.
the auto include location change. But I think you're right. Like, even if Merlin's play rate drops 1% or something, then that's 1% for Magic or something like that. But a lot of the Hela decks are just playing Corvus on 3, hoping it doesn't hit Hela. And even if it does hit Hela, maybe Ghost Rider will bring her back, or maybe you can Odin and try again. So a lot of them don't even need a turn 7. They're doing everything a turn earlier anyway.
Another thing worth considering with Fin Fang Foom is going to be that, like I mentioned Magic, but when you have cards like Legion being auto-included in a lot of the War Machine ramp decks too, that completely knocks the wind out of something like Fin Fang Foom from that perspective too. Even though they did recently change, like, okay, they buffed Electro, they buffed Luna Snow to 3, they buffed Wave. So like all these like more expensive cards like the Galactis, like these 7-costed cards, they have more opportunities to come out, but still like there's nothing better than just popping it off with a discard and then bringing it back later, right?
Yeah.
I even had the thought of like, well, is it worth getting rid of it in like a Khonshu shell, right? Because you could target it directly with something like a Lady Sif, which I think is particularly fascinating. But I don't know if that's worth it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do have Weapon H in that slot. Now, it's kind of interesting to think about how many additional 7 costs we have. It's just that, like, right now, we don't have that many tools to make good utilization of them. But it feels like as more cards are added to the game, or cards are getting buffed, suddenly the 7 power, or the 7 cost, I should say, doesn't feel as detrimental as it once was. And at the end of the day, are you convinced? Like, I think I'm convinced I'm going to be playing it in HELA, but I was just trying to see if I can cook elsewhere.
Yeah, I think it's I want to say it's auto included in HELA moving forward. It probably can fit in other things, maybe the ramp shell. I think the discard shell, I think Weapon H is so good it probably doesn't need anything else. But it's funny to say that because I also don't want Weapon H in the HELA deck that I play. So it's interesting that it could be so good in one type of discard and not so in the other. So maybe it's just different different versions of the same thing. Fin Fang Foom just fits better in HELA.
I kind of find it surprising that they did give it 12 power. I feel like it's a lot. I think it's going to be over 20 power very consistently. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I think maybe they're just trying to make either 7 costs in general, or maybe dragons. They just want dragons to feel big and powerful. So this is their version of making Fing Fang from that. Shu Lao is already like doing its thing over there, so they didn't really have to give it 12 power. But yeah, I think maybe they want us to connect dragons with huge power and huge swingy plays. So maybe they just wanted to give them that.
No, no, absolutely. And again, if you're going to be jumping through the hoops of what a 7 power cost entails,
Mm.
but the thing about Fing Fang Foom is with HELA, like you kind of dodge that to some degree. So we'll
Yep.
have to see if it ends up being a meta shaker as potentially expected. But before we move on to our mailbag, I do have to ask, star rating rise 1 to 5 stars. I went last week, or not last week, whenever we talked about it, I talked with Cam Bess on the season preview. I gave it 4 stars. I'm sticking with it. I think this is a legitimately good card. I don't think it's a 5-star meta shaker the way Shu Lao is. I think Shu Lao is better because it has a much wider meta impact. But I do think that Fin Fang Foom is good, in particular with HELA. But obviously, Stardust is perhaps a factor this upcoming week.
I think it's interesting because we were talking about decks not having room to cut. I'm really excited to try Fing Fang Foom in HELA, but I also have to decide what to cut, right? And I think as I'm playing it, I may go back and forth. I may be like, because like, what am I going to cut? I might cut Legion. I might cut, maybe I forego the Odin line, which is super strong, super powerful. Maybe I'll want it back. Maybe I'll be like, Fing Fang Foom is powerful and a lot of fun, but I'm doing what I want the deck to do less consistently now, or I don't have the tools to defend myself if I drop Legion or something like that. So I want to give it a 4, but there's been so many times where, and especially the HELA deck that I play and I can constantly go back to, even when it's maybe a B tier or C tier deck. It's just so tight, and it's so like if you drop one piece, you kind of have to rebuild the entire deck. So I want to give it a 4 as well. I think giving it a 3 is kind of like dodging the question a little bit. So I'll go with the 4. But I do see a reality where I try Fing Fang Foom out and I just take him back out. So I hope it isn't that. I hope he's good enough to stay. But it's just these tightly built decks. Like there's no room for error, or if the shell you're using is doing what it's doing well, why disrupt it?
That's true. It's going to need some careful deck building to really make
Yeah.
it worth its time, right? So we'll have to see how that shakes up by the end of that first week it comes out.
But I do give it a 4 as well. I'm with you.
Perfect. Now you might be thinking, Alex, why are you showing a Knull on the screen? Well, that's because our mailbag question is all about Knull. We had an interesting question come from Dario. Dario asked, "It's time to talk Knull. It's insane how often Destroy has a free win no matter how badly the match went, as long as they can compete with one location and then slap down a Knull. It's just too much." The reason why I bring this up, Interrobang, because I've seen comments like this quite frequently, and I kind of disagree. I think that Knull feels more challenging to get value out of right now, especially with the nerf to X23, which was kind of like a low-key, like maybe a 4 to 5 power activator for Knull over the course of a game. I feel like Knull's stocks have actually gone down a little bit over the last little while, but I have repeatedly gotten comments about people who have actually low-key started hating Destroy, and Knull is a culprit that they often bring up as being problematic. So I'm interested in your thoughts based on our comment from Dario here.
Yeah, I think it's funny. One of my rule of thumbs, I'm a conquest gamer and I have over 40 infinity borders at this point. And one of my rule of thumbs is if your deck can't beat Destroy, don't bring it into Infinity Conquest, because it doesn't matter what it's good against, doesn't matter what it counters. If on game 4 you get paired up with a 1000 collection level person playing a rudimentary Destroy list and they just have Death and Null, like they're just gonna beat you. So it's funny. It goes both ways, right? Like I think there's so many tools to counter Null right now, especially with like Cosmic Ghost Rider. If they're going for like a Null Arnim play, you can drop the Stardust, and then like he just kills himself and he doesn't come back out. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do and shut it down. And one of the things that I have gotten really good at is predicting where they're going to drop the Null, and then all you have to know is that you can beat the death in the other lane, right? So if they can only win two lanes, try to figure out which one you're definitely winning, try to guess where they're putting their Null, and then just make sure that you're beating the 12 power in the other lane. And that comes into play so much in Conquest, where like the destroy players are very like by the numbers, like they're dropping Null and Death. If it's super obvious that they're putting Null somewhere, then just don't even fight for it. Let them have it and just beat the Death in the other lane. But yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of ways to counter Null right now, but it's very hard unless you have the tools to beat a perfect draw popping off rudimentary destroy deck. And that feels like by design, right? Like it's a very like your first synergistic deck. Like it teaches you that these cards interact with each other and they do the things, and it's kind of everyone's first deck that they have every card for. So I would be very hesitant to change that experience for people, because I think it's a very like training wheels introduction into like deck building for Marvel Snap.
There's no doubt about it. Now, I want to actually bring up something, because while you were talking, I was thinking to myself, I was like, you know what? I mentioned the change to X23, which I think is fair. X23 did take some power off of Null, because it's often one that you're destroying very often. But I need to mention there is a counterpoint to that, and that is going to be its Headpool. Headpool added a lot of extra power into the recurring destroy archetype, where like you're just bringing back you're just adding power, destroying things, adding power, and so Headpool definitely did perhaps offset what was happening with X23. But for me, like I played a ton of Destroy over the last little while. For me, it's not the Null that I feel is so powerful. It's the Moira into multiple deaths, or Moira into multiple deaths and multiple venoms, that I find is incredibly powerful. And Null might be a byproduct of being able to have my way with my opponent because of Moira X, which I absolutely love. It's one of my absolute favorite cards in the game. But like, I can see why Null is frustrating, and I love the fact that you said like you can show up with the most pay-to-win deck imaginable, and someone with 1,000 collection level will clap your cheeks with a Null deck,
Yeah.
because it's the barometer of Marvel Snap's meta. Destroy is like, it wouldn't surprise me if Second Dinner in a boardroom meeting says like we need a 55% win rate deck that is the constant that we tune everything to, and like whatever meta destroy running 55% is like the barometer they decide how to balance things. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, no, I could definitely agree with that. Yeah. And yeah, it's funny so I think during the Weapon X season, obviously Weapon X was a destroy card, and I wanted to cook with him and climb with him, but I didn't want to just play rudimentary destroy, so I really leaned into a Moira X Moon Girl deck, and I by the end of the game sometimes I had like 6 or 7 deaths, and that was a lot more fun than just playing like regular destroy and dropping my Null and stuff like that. So I agree. I think Moira X could get really, really crazy with destroy, and there's a lot of interesting things you can do there other than just destroy your stuff and drop your death and Null at the end. So I think Null. It's funny that they say that about Null, because you can kind of say that about any deck that has like a big card finisher at the end. I guess the only difference for destroy is it also has the death, or it also has the Deadpool if they've been like juicing that up too. But yeah, I mean, Marvel Snap is just guess where they're going to drop their big thing and play around that, or beat it. So yeah, I don't know. Destroy is I do have that rule: if you can't beat destroy, get ready for it to end your run in the most boring and mundane way possible. Because you just have to be ready for that. It just happens sometimes. But I agree with you, where it's kind of like if this like poster child of Marvel Snap synergy isn't good, then it just teaches players like, don't worry about synergy, just play cards that you can drop and do your thing with them.
I have nothing to add other than that. I just wanted to showcase my favorite variant that I own,
Oh,
which
beautiful.
is this death. Yes, that's why. So I just threw it up on the screen. It had to. It's probably my absolute favorite variant in the game right now. So
I have the forgot her name, but it's like the old black and white. I have ink with black crackle, so it's just like, all right,
Ooh.
this is it.
Yeah, that's cool. For me, when I'm doing my collection and stuff, I just want one amazing split per card with one amazing variant. I just want one that I'm just very happy with, and then I can move on to the next one, right? But I've been actually having some bad luck with my splits lately. I've
Oh
not
my
been
God.
getting
The
bangers.
double mastery is like the worst possible thing. I've been like unlocking stuff that I don't want to hit like more often. I'm splitting Blink right now and I'm on like split like 25. I haven't even hit a single crackle yet. It's
That's
terrible.
so sad. That's awful. Interrobang, thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of the Snapchat. It means the world to me that you'd carve time out of your busy schedule to be with us. Where can we find you on the great worldwide interwebs, I was going to say?
Well, I'm chronically online. Also, thank you for having me. But I'm chronically online, so you can find me on Twitter, probably sending like 1,000 tweets a day. But I'm also live every single day. Like I said, I cracked the code and I stream for 366 days in a row somehow. But I'm on twitch.tv/Interrobang with an E on the end. I couldn't get my name, so I added an E. But yeah, I'm live every night, midnight EST. And that's where you can find me.
That's awesome. And of course, we'll have that linked down below in both the description and in the pinned comment section, so you could make sure you go to Twitch TV and follow along. Thanks so much, guys. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll see you on the next one.